Show and go with Taylor Davis for Tuesday, March 14th. Are you a SpongeBob guy at all?
I've watched SpongeBob, yeah.
So
I grew up, that was like my era.
Okay, so the movie. Did you watch the SpongeBob SquarePants movie?
Did not.
In after now the conclusion of the Oscars, I think that was snubbed to Best Picture, whichever year that came out. But the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, March 14th, is the day that like Mr. Krabs is supposed to get annihilated by King Neptune, and it doesn't happen, and there's a big dance number, and that's all cool stuff. So that's what I thought, March 14th. But this is Show and Go with Taylor Davis. I'm Jack McMullen. News dump. This is what we do on Tuesdays. Corbin Carroll just signed an 8-year, $111 million extension after playing 30-plus games at the major league level, but welcome to the new frontier of pre-arbitration deals. We're going to talk about that, maybe some candidates to also get some deals. Also, we've had World Baseball Classic to ingest, and we saw the U.S. lose to Mexico on Sunday night, so we got to get into all that. I mean, dude, like that Carroll thing, you shot me a text. I was as stunned as you were, but my first take was, I love it. What was your first take?
Yeah, I wasn't that stunned. We had that one and we had the Ruiz extension, which occurred like 2 days before. The Ruiz extension to me was much more of a typical pre-arb extension, right? Like it was 8 years at 40. And, I think that, the difference here also, like outside of just the two extensions, the big number is that Corbin Carroll is going to make potentially 154 if he maxes out voting and gets the option picked up. And he's going to be a free agent at 31. He's going to be Manny Machado. So, he could sign a $350 million deal still. And I think the Ruiz one, where he's at age-wise, that's probably, if he maxes it out and they pick up the options, that's his big deal. Like, that's most likely going to be the biggest contract he signs. And I think that's, to me, that's the biggest underlining factor of the two. I think it was an extremely good deal for both sides on the Carroll part. I mean, obviously the Diamondbacks are taking more risk than most teams have made historically. Like, this is a big deal for a guy that doesn't have many games, like you said, 30 games, but he's an exciting player. And I don't know, have we seen this combination potentially of defensive prowess, speed, and power, of recent times?
No, I'm thinking in terms of prospect pedigree, the only guy that kind of matches it that has gotten a deal like this, Julio transcends what's going on with Corbin Carroll, but Carroll was really good in a small sample. You can call what Wander Franco had in 2021 a small sample, and they got relatively similar deals. We mentioned 8 for 111. There is a club option for 28 in the 2031 season. Wander Franco is signed through his age 31 season, club option for 25 in his age 32 season, but he was 11 for 182. So, more money overall, but 3 more years attached to that. I think that is the only comparable situation here. In terms of what Corbin Carroll does on the field, I couldn't tell you the last guy that was built like this, because Julio has a different skill set. Wander Franco has a different skill set. If everything goes to shit, and Aram and I were talking about this on the Just Baseball show, if Corbin Carroll is a 98 WRC plus guy, slightly below average hitter, it's not because he's not walking. It's not because he's not playing elite defense or stealing bases. It's just the power zapped, So if everything goes to shit, you're paying a guy $111 million that is a really good defensive outfielder that can swipe bags whenever he's on and is going to walk it at a rate over 10%. It's very bust proof, it seems.
I see it very similar to the Ke'Bryan Hayes extension, where you paid Ke'Bryan Hayes to where if he never got a hit, he's going to match that value because he's the best defensive third baseman, arguably baseball's seen since he's been in baseball.
Correct.
So that made a lot more sense when I saw that extension. Look, Ke'Bryan as a person, love him. Another guy, we talked about Mitch Keller, he's a Pittsburgh guy. Great bloodlines. I think he fits well in that clubhouse. He wanted to be there. But I think there were some questions. There were other guys you could have extended before him, obviously, the guy in the outfield, right? But when you put it that way, when I heard that made so much more sense to me for a small market team to say, hey, we're going to secure ourselves the best defender at the position that if he hits, we make money. So, and I think that's kind of what you're saying with Corbin. Now, here's my big question to you. And like, I think I kind of mentioned this, is that to me, the Corbin Carroll deal, all that did was ramp up Adley Rutschman's market. Like, if I'm baseball, that's the guy I'm looking to see extended because the Orioles need him to be extended. The Orioles need that player. And I think Adley likes Baltimore. I don't, I haven't heard a ton that he dislikes. And obviously they value him a lot, as they should. So like, that's the question mark. Corbin Carroll gets that after 30 games, and Adley's doing this at a position where he's going to have more power. He's going to walk more. He's not going to run as much. He's got a chance to have more defensive WAR than Corbin Carroll does, because he is the best catcher in baseball. Yes. And I'm not convinced within 5 years he's not going to be the best catcher and best hitter in baseball. But you've had a full year. So like, what kind of money is he going to get?
That's a great question. And no offense to you, catcher Taylor Davis, but like, I totally align with you. Like, he will accrue more defensive WAR. I think there's probably more sex appeal from a center fielder, or, if Carroll is playing left because Alec Thomas is in center, an elite outfielder, right? Because they're going to make the top 10 plays. Like, what's Adley going to do? Throw out a bunch of runners. But his value to a team defensively far surpasses anything that Corbin Carroll can do. It's the Instagram versus database conversation, right? It is the who's going to put together the best highlight reel, who's going to be the better player. Corbin Carroll, I think, is going to put together a really good highlight reel. Adley, probably not, but if anyone's going to be better and more impactful for their team, it's going to be Adley Rutschman. So I'm with you, man. Like, part of my thinking was, okay, Adley is going to be looking at the Wilson Contreras deal this offseason, but he has already surpassed the catcher contract conversation. That's not a debate anymore.
He's already getting more than Real Muto. Like, yes. Here's my argument. I don't disagree with you, right? The sexier position is shortstop and center field. Those are the two sexy positions in baseball,
right?
Without question. And then starting pitching. My argument is, so let me break this down a little bit. I had this conversation when Puig and Jose Abreu were new into the league.
Yeah.
We had a conversation about with a guy that he'll actually end up being on this podcast, Anthony Ginsani. We'll get him on at some point. But I had a conversation with him. Who would you rather have at the time? Take away the locker room stuff. And my argument was it would be easier to replace in the lineup Yasiel Puig than it would be to replace Jose Abreu. My argument stands with this. I think if I take Corbin Carroll away, it's easier to replace those numbers somewhere in that lineup than it is at catcher, where if you do nothing, if I produce nothing, no offense to Thomas Nido, I am still going to be a very valuable player to where I get extended.
Can I give you two other names? Please. Jonah Heim, Jose Trevino. Those are two guys that are consensus top 10 catchers in baseball right now. And there are nights where they are nothing burgers offensively, like liability 8-hole, 9-hole. But they're both platinum glove level defenders. Trevino just won a platinum glove. Like, Adley is platinum glove level defense, and he's your 4-hitter, your 3-hitter, or your 2-hitter.
EVP level offensive player. And my argument is almost even deeper than that, in that most teams are searching for a 0 F-WAR catcher. Most teams just don't want their catcher to lose them value. As long as you're not losing them value. So, like Jose Trevino, he didn't hit a ton, but he still gained a ton of value defensively. Yeah. I'm just looking for a guy that is exactly average. If I can put that guy, most teams are looking for that guy. That's why I think it's so special when you just have an offensive or you just have a defensive catcher. Like you said, the Yankees are lucky they have Trevino just because what he does defensively. Imagine if you could do that, plus walk more than you strike out, hit homers, hit more doubles than Cal Ripken Jr. in your first year. There's a lot to like there, and we'll get him on the podcast. I'll try to get him to break some break some news on some extension talks or something.
Yeah, perfect. Adley, what are you signing for, man? What are the numbers being floated around right now? So yes, look past the Corbin Carroll thing when you talk about an Adley Rutschman extension. I say you enter somewhere either in between or surpassing the duo of Wander Franco, again, 11 years, 182, or what Julio Rodriguez just signed, 12 for 209.
Yeah, I think you're looking at I think you're looking at 200, man. I really do. I think it's somewhere in the 200s. I think there could be an argument to be made that the bat is good enough that you could give him a 13 or 14 for 300. If you're willing to go that long, as we're seeing teams are willing to do now, I think he could get to 300. But, he's a guy that, to his credit, he got a decent amount of money when he signed. He doesn't have to have that financial stability. He has it already. So, if I'm him, I don't know that I'm even taking it, right? This is a tough thing to talk about, but I think the reality is the top players in each class hold the responsibility of setting the market for the rest of the class. It's just the fact, right? You hold that extra. Garrett Cole held that extra responsibility in setting the market for the rest of the starting pitching class. Mike Trout also, I think you can almost say that Mike Trout's deal was a steal. I would go to say that Mike Trout would have got well over 400 had he hit the market, right? So I think that those guys have that extra added responsibility of look, man, you understand. And some of the guys care, some don't. I think Adley will care. Adley appreciates the history of the game. Adley appreciates what's been done and who's been there before him. And so I think that he's going to take that into account. But man, and I'm biased because he's such an awesome person. And, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but it doesn't make them any better on the field. It just makes it so much more fun to root for.
Yes, 100%. And, counterpoint here, I was talking to a good friend of mine who spent time as a college coach, as a pro coach, still trains pro guys that I got to know. And he is very, very plugged in and very pro player. And we were talking about a guy like Aaron Hicks, who is just kind of sucking money out of the New York Yankees right now. And he said, there needs to be a contract restructuring here. This guy is costing this team, he may not be costing them money. It may not be a cash deficit because I'm sure the New York Yankees are making Hicks's money back in droves and they can spend it somewhere else. But that is a big number that they got to look at and shrug and clench their teeth about. And one of the points that he was trying to make was the players are not as large of a piece to the revenue as the union makes them out to be. And I kind of called BS on that because without an Adley Rutschman, not many people are showing up to Camden Yards. Without Julio Rodriguez, not many people are showing up to T-Mobile Park.
I don't buy that. And the reason I don't buy that is because, look, the reason he's saying that is because the Yankees sell out every year. They make money every year. But why the Yankees
are the Yankees? Right.
Because they win. But how do you win? You have good players. That don't win. Show me a team that doesn't win consistently that's at the top of the revenue charts.
The Rockies. The Rockies are top 5 in attendance consistently, and they don't win. You know why? Because it's family fun. So that is one team out of 30. Hold on, but 29.
But if we're talking about attendance, are we talking about money? I'm talking about revenue.
Oh, all right. Let me go find the revenue.
Yeah, find revenue. So because here's what I'll also tell you is that when we had this lockout, I love the fans. They're awesome. But, ticket sales are not the only source of revenue for these teams. These TV contracts are massive, and there's other deals that they do within those. So, there's other factors that go into this. But I don't buy that either. But I will say this, go ahead.
Here we go. 2022, highest revenue teams. Dodgers 1, Yankees 2, Red Sox 3. Underwhelming year, but people are still going to show up because you're at Fenway Park. Atlanta 4.
And you still had significant talent. You had Nathan Eovaldi.
Yep.
You brought up Brian. What was that guy's name at the end? Brian Bello.
Bello, yeah, Brian Bello.
Go ahead.
The Cubs were 5, and the Cubs, you could say they were kind of mailing it in at times. It felt. Houston 6, the Rangers 7. They spent $500 million on the middle infield.
Yep.
You're gonna go see them. San Francisco 8. that was not a good team to watch last year, and it felt like they weren't committing. But we know that San Francisco is gearing up to commit a ton of money to.
And they're a big market in general, so like they're a team who's going to benefit from the non-fan stuff.
Exactly. So that's the perfect reasoning. From a big market perspective, I understand where he's coming from. The Yankees, like Aaron Judge obviously means a lot, but Giancarlo for that money may not be worth it for the New York Yankees because they're a massive market. They're going to find somebody that wants to come to New York on a discount. Aaron Hicks, same thing. But if you are in Arizona, if you are a Baltimore, hell, if you are a Seattle, which is a little bit larger than an Arizona and a Baltimore, you got to lock these guys up because people are not going to show up if Julio Rodriguez is not on your team.
And I really think it comes down to also like, yes, guys want people to turn on the TV and watch you, but I think the reality is you have to win. And like, it's so rare. And I mean, win consistently, right? Like you mentioned two teams on there, the Red Sox and the Giants, and obviously the Rangers, but we talked about the Rangers. And in the past 10 years, the Rangers have won. So like, if you don't win consistently, it's going to be tough for people to want to watch you if you have no talent. If you have talent, you don't have to necessarily win. And so that's where I would tell you that the players do matter, is because of that right there. Yeah, you know, they're interesting would be like, what if you could lose the I wouldn't be so like put out if you could like lose the money off of the salary cap, like this the CBT, if like what if you released Aaron Hicks? Like you could get rid of that money off the CBT. You still gotta pay him.
Yeah.
But like, he's not on the roster. Like, I wouldn't hate that. I know owners would, but like that would be a way to handle that. Yeah. Because like you said, the Yankees could care less about paying him $8 million, $50, whatever they're paying him this year.
Right.
It's nothing to them.
The only way that it hurts is if it's Corbin or Strasburg where they're making 30.
No, so here's what I was just about to say. Strasburg doesn't hurt either because you've insured those contracts. They're making that 30 back. Yeah. So like guys that get hurt, you're getting that money back. I'm not worried about it. Like, it's the guys that don't get hurt that just struggle. Those are the guys that hurt you. Those are the guys that you're like, man, not only am I paying him, he's counting against CBT, and I got to pay him, and I have to play him. So that's where, you know, but yeah, come on. No, the players matter, man. Like the players are the talent at the end of the day.
Yes.
The venues are put up, which is why they make so much money. You know, like,
I'm with you. Like, I'm totally with you. Going back to Adley, here's the case for him to show up to Mike Elias's office and say, okay, hey, here's why I deserve more than Julio Rodriguez does. Adley Rutschman and Julio Rodriguez had identical F4s, 5.3. J-Rod played 132 games. Adley played 113. 21 fewer games, same one.
Offensive year.
Adley, in terms of WRC plus, 133 compared to 146 for J-Rod.
I got Adley having a down year. I got J-Rod having one of the best years of his career.
So I don't hate that he hasn't signed yet, because if you're buying the stock in Adley right now, and you are buying that J-Rod, while he was exceptional and still will be exceptional, is like a 135 guy. If Adley is 145 and J-Rod's 135 this year and Adley outwars J-Rod, I think that he can slap that contract on the table and say, hey, I need this plus, plus 1 year.
I think the biggest question mark, right, is if Adley moves to first base or he moves to DH, which is going to be the argument, right? You can only catch for so long. Does he still create that value offensively? Buster Posey did it for however long he did it, long enough. There have been guys that have done it. I think Adley's athletic enough to do it, but I know that's the argument, especially in Baltimore, because they had a guy, right? They had the franchise catcher, and it just kind of broke down at the end. Yeah. So that's going to be the argument within ownership because it is the same ownership. But here's what I'll say too, is like last episode we talked about the automatic system. that's going to take some pressure off these guys. Nobody on base. You're going to be able to relax. Like, you're not necessarily going to, it's not going to be totally, a walk in the park, but it's going to be, I think it'll be less stressful. And so, like, it'll be a little bit easier on your bodies. And, the knee down stuff has really changed a lot of this as well. So, I look for Adley. If I'm Adley and I saw that Corbin Carroll extension, I'm loving that. I don't know if I said this on air, but like, I played with a guy who was around Paul Goldschmidt during his extension talks, and like the conversation was, that's a really good deal, Paul, but tomorrow you're going to wake up and somebody's going to sign a better deal than you that's not as good as you. And like the next day, Anthony Rizzo signed a deal, who unbelievable player as well, but he's not as good as Paul Goldschmidt.
He's not Goldschmidt, yeah.
Right, and he made more money than Paul Goldschmidt did on that deal. And so I think that's the same question here is like, just don't shortchange yourself, because and Adley is humble enough, but also confident enough to bet on himself. So we'll see what happens.
Other counter argument, and then we'll put this one to bed, is Adley is 3 years older than Julio is. Adley is 3 years older than Wander Franco.
How old is Adley?
Adley Rutschman is, I'll pull up the exact month and days. Happy belated to Adley Rutschman, born February 6th, 98, 25 years, 1 month, 7 days old.
So he's 25. So if I did something this winter, let's just say we did it on his birthday when he was 26, I would be comfortable giving him, like I could see them getting him to 34, doing 8 at, what would 8 at oh man.
That's 2 years in. You're buying out one more pre-arb year and all 3 arbitration years.
Let's assume that he has another Adley Rutschman year. I'm going to give him 8 at 240 with 2 options. That takes him to 34 in the contract and an option to take you to 36. That's his last contract he's going to sign. He could sign something maybe to take him to 40 if he's that good of an offensive player when he's elder.
Wow. Okay, hold on. Let me pull up his spot track so I know how many years you're taking him off the open market.
You're taking him off the open market because he's got 1 full season right now. So he'll have 2 full seasons. You'll be taking him off the market for 4 years.
For 4 years. Okay. That can make some sense.
And I'm paying him $30 a year for 8 years.
Damn.
And by that time, so in 5 years, $30 a year for 4 years is going to be nothing for him.
Hey, text him that deal and just say yes or no. And whatever he says, we'll just talk about it on the air.
Yeah, we'll just do it. Hey, I'll get a group text, him and Mike.
Yeah, perfect. It's like, hey, how do you guys feel about this one? I was just shooting the shit with a buddy.
What if they both like did it the next day and like I have to become an agent? It would have to happen.
Well, and then in the release that the Orioles put out at the bottom, it's listen to Show and Go with Taylor Davis every Tuesday and Friday. Wherever you get your podcasts.
The header is Show and Go.
Yes,
not Orioles.
Exactly. Show and Go breaks Adley Rutschman's perceived deal with the Baltimore Orioles. All right, let's talk World Baseball Classic right now, because Adley, I think the conversation about Adley is second best catcher in the game going into this year, only behind JT Realmuto because he's got that track record. Number 3 is probably Will Smith. Those guys are both on the U.S. roster. The bats are great. The arms are leaving a lot to be desired. They end up losing to Mexico. Overall, and then we'll get into the USA conversation, but overall, this World Baseball Classic, how fun has it been for you as a player to watch this event?
Dude, me as a player and me as a baseball fan, both has been so much fun. I think it's so cool to see all of these teams beating each other. Like, I don't love it when, necessarily the Cinderella story beats everybody they shouldn't. But You're seeing teams beat guys and then get beat, and it's baseball. It's like the backyard tournament, man. It feels like a perfect game tournament. Like, these dudes are battling it out. Most of the teams are relatively even, kind of like we've talked about. There's been some games that obviously have come out and like wowed you, but that happens. It's baseball.
Yeah.
I think the reality is Japan's been fun to watch throw the ball. America's been fun to watch hit the ball. I saw a stat today that said the top 10 American-born pitchers that from last season are not on the American roster, which, I don't know that I blame guys for not playing, I don't know that I blame him. I don't know that I don't blame him. Let's talk about this for a second, though. I want to talk about this because I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. What do we think about Marcus Stroman playing for Puerto Rico after everything that happened last Classic?
Yeah, so I find it interesting. I think I'm not gonna like read any farther into it other than like, hey, new Classic, the restrictions are really loose. Like Jaron Duran was going to be on the US Olympic team in 2021, and here he is on Team Mexico. You know what I mean? So I think that
but he could have but Stroman could have played for Puerto Rico in the last Classic, and he told them he was going to.
Yeah, really weird. I think it's really weird. I think that there are
like,
a lot of
look back, like there was a lot of hate on the Puerto Rican side for him not doing that because I think he did it late. And not only did he do it late, but he pitched for America, and I believe he no-hit Puerto Rico through like 4 or 5.
He was the player of the Classic in 2017.
I mean, that one shocked me when I saw that.
Yeah, really interesting for sure. I understand pitchers sitting this one out or staying in their spring training. I'm not gonna like discount, like I'm not gonna point to any American pitcher and be like, Clayton Kershaw, you need to pitch in this Classic. Like Clayton Kershaw needs to do what he's got to do. And even the younger guys like Cease, McClanahan, hell, even a Tristan McKenzie, like, how dare you not throw for the Stars and Stripes? Like, dude, you got to take care of yourself. You got to solidify what you're doing on your major league team because like they're not paying you to play in this. They're paying you to play Major League Baseball. I commend the best arms that are pitching for their teams, like Sandy, Ohtani, Darvish. Like, I'm thrilled that they are throwing for their country, and it obviously means so much to them. And I'm not saying that like it wouldn't mean so much for Dylan Cease to throw for Team USA. I'm just saying like there's something about being from the country that baseball was invented. There's something about being from the country where, 70% of your organization hails from that, maybe doesn't hit as hard as like being a really proud Dominican arm. And Sandy, it's like, I'm the best pitcher on the planet and I'm from the fucking Dominican and I'm going to show everybody.
And like a little bit of me is, I guess like my bigger question about guys not doing it is like there was so much talk about the Dominican, about Venezuela, about Japan. Like nobody was talking about America. And like, man, if you ever wanted to have pride about playing for America, it was this year. Like this was the Classic that everybody was questioning America.
Yeah.
Because they were looking at it going, that Dominican roster, look at that Dominican roster, look at that Japanese staff. Nobody was talking about the American roster. And
I think they were talking about the lineup
at the end, because Mark DeRosa said some awesome stuff and had some awesome interviews about the roster and brought light to the fact that it was the greatest. Honestly, one of the coolest things I heard was him talking to Coach K. I don't know if you read that, but like, because this is the lineup is the dream team of baseball. Like this is the greatest offensive lineup ever put together in the history of baseball.
Yes.
And probably will be for the next, because there's no way the next Classic lineup looks like this. I can't imagine a lineup looking this good for a team for a while.
You know what? I can see lineups looking like it. I'm not sure if we're ever going to see a Japanese rotation like this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure we're ever going to see a pitching staff look as strong as Japan's does.
Also, let's talk about the Czech Republic, just normal citizens winning.
Love that. Love it so much. Like one of them's a D2 baseball player, and like the rest are electricians and teachers and shit.
Dude, I played with Martin Cervenka, who's catching on that team, and he was a minor league player as of, I believe, last year, maybe the year before. So like, but he's got a regular job now. But like, great dude. He was a good player, had a chance to be something, and it just didn't pan out. But so cool to see. But the reason I brought that up is because did you see the video of Sasaki hitting the guy on the knee?
Yeah, and then did you see the photo of Sasaki like taking a picture with him after and like obviously apologizing after the game?
Brought him candy. He tweeted and said he brought him candy and stuff. But like, can you just imagine like the average like plant manager getting hit in the back knee by 101? Like, what is that guy doing? No way.
He's probably like reassessing life when that happens. It's like, hey, that's really cool. I got hit by Roki Sasaki, or why did I do this to myself?
That guy's either had 6 beers and it feels fine, or he's getting stretchered off. One of the two.
Yeah, I don't think that they're getting 6 beers down before a WBC game. Although if there is any team that's going to do it, it's probably the Czech Republic, right?
Can you imagine if they're just getting hammered before games? Like, look,
Awesome.
guys, this is so much fun for us. Like, let's just get blasted and go play. Like slow pitch softball level. They're passing around empty half carton milk jugs.
Why not, man? Italy's got the Nespresso machine. You need like a keg in there. That would be great.
Italy's sneaky good, man. Like prospect. Italy's like the prospect team.
Yeah,
like,
I mean they got Sal Frelick. Yeah.
Do you buy Pasquantino? Are you in on Pasquantino?
I love Vinny.
Yeah, I do too.
Love him.
Yeah.
What about his profile? Do you like? There's something about him being so good within the strike zone. Like he is a bat to ball guy that just happens to be huge, and that's where the power comes from. I love that because he doesn't need to try to hit the ball 400 feet. Like, what do you love when you watch Vinny Pasquantino?
Oh, that's it. That's it. You hit it. Bat to ball. I like the bat to ball stuff. He's oh man, I'm gonna forget this guy's name, and it's gonna make me mad because he lived in Jupiter. They used to call him the mayor. Played first base, MLB analyst, MLB Network analyst for really good player.
Sean Casey.
Sean Casey. He's like a powerful Sean Casey, right? He's like a Sean Casey with power, like because that was what Sean Casey did. He hit the ball, but he just didn't have power. So like he's an average defending, average to below average running, bat to ball guy that can hit homers. And I love that.
Sean Casey was a career 302 hitter with a 10% K rate.
So dude, he was a G. He was tight.
He was a G. 3-time All-Star Sean Casey. Yeah, I mean, like he never like impacted the ball too much. Like he was an 814 OPS guy in his career. But I mean, you know, he had a 25 homer season in there. He had a 24 homer season in there. He just wasn't like your stereotypical first baseman. And I think Vinny has enough power to be the stereotypical first baseman, but he's got that Sean Casey. I totally see that.
At the time, 25 was like 8.
Yeah.
Because they were hitting 40. But like, you know, the other thing I think that probably drew me the Sean Casey comparison is that they were both in the Central for a long time. So, well, I don't know for a long time, but he played for Detroit for a bit. So,
Casey was, let's see, Detroit for 2 years. He was a Red for a long time.
Yeah. That's where I knew him, was the Cincinnati. I just remember him in Detroit at like the end of his career.
Okay, so other guy that I think that you probably loved, and I don't think we've ever talked about him. You catch any Alec Burleson when he was in Memphis or St. Louis? You're definitely an Alec Burleson guy.
Yeah, I'm in on Alec Burleson. We talked about Alec Burleson because you and me did the Cardinals lineup.
That's right. That's right.
And I want Burleson to get the lion's share of at bats from the left side on that DH platoon with Yepes.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that he deserves a chance because similar reason, bat to ball, but like, you know what we talked about like Lars Nootbaar being good at everything, not great at anything. I think that's kind of the Alec Burleson offensive thing. Like he's good at everything offensively. Nothing's like, I don't think he's going to hit 40. I don't think he's going to hit 320. I don't think he's going to walk a million times. But I also don't think he's going to do really anything poorly offensively. Like, I'd like to see him get a chance.
So Burleson was 331 with a 372 OBP, 109 games in Memphis, 20 homers. Like, he didn't walk. He didn't strike out. He just put the ball in play, and it found grass a lot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see him hitting 330 in the big leagues.
No.
But I don't see him hitting 230 in the big leagues either.
Right.
Don't see him hitting 20, but I don't see him hitting 2. Like,
right.
I could very much see this being a 270 with 10, 270 with 12, which as a platoon, if you're only hitting right-handers and Juan Yepes is hammering left-handers, what else do you want? I mean, I think that's a guy that deserves an opportunity for sure. I like Alec Burleson, but I like Pasquantino better. I mean, as obviously, but you know, I think Pasquantino is Burleson with more power. And, you know, the thing that I liked about Vinny was, you know, the first time that we saw him, easy out, to be honest with you. Like, he'll probably hate it because I'll try to get him on at some point. But because he played with one of my buddies in college, but
At Old Dominion.
Yeah, at Old Dominion. He played PJ Higgins at Old Dominion, who
Nice.
So there were some holes there. Like, it wasn't, I don't want to say it was an easy at bat, but like there were some holes there where he was pitchable and he chased. And then the second time we saw him, adjustments had been made. He didn't go out of the zone a ton. You had to go in the zone, and like you said, when it's in the zone, it's hammered, and it's kind of the Bryce Harper effect. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be Bryce Harper, but like that was in 21. That was the Bryce Harper effect. Was like, look, you've got to stay in the zone because he doesn't chase, and if you go in the zone, he hammers it. So like, have fun. I think that's a good combo to have.
Yeah.
I don't know where Kansas City's going, but they have a couple pieces that are pretty strong. I'll tell you, we talk about, Corbin Carroll, and we talked about the Diamondbacks last episode, but like, I forgot all about the fact that they got freaking Jordan Lawler coming up too.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have Jordan Lawler, Corbin Carroll, like that team is going to be really good.
That's the thing. So like Kansas City, they've got pros everywhere, and they've got like really good players with a bright future everywhere. With Pasquantino, not on the mound, and like that's the problem. That's why Kansas City's in a weird spot. But they've got Pasquantino at first. They've got Melendez as the catcher of the future, with Salvi as the catcher for now. Maybe Melendez plays an outfield spot. Maybe he DHs. Then you've got like obviously Bobby Witt, just mentioned him. Mike Massey at second base, I think is awesome. They've got a surplus of outfielders that they could just keep on trying, and a couple are gonna give it a go. Arizona, yeah, I mean, they just have like one glaring hole in the lineup right now, and that's shortstop, whether it's Ahmed or Perdomo, who are both really good defenders. They can't hit right now. You've got a good defender that can really hit in Lawler that's probably a year and a half away.
Yeah. He's 2024, I feel like. I wish Ahmed would get healthy because, man, like Ahmed healthy is almost like we were talking about. You want a guy that could, like he's like the Jose Trevino of shortstops for me. Like, and even if he does, he's a guy that like, even if he doesn't grade out well at shortstop, that team trusts him enough that, and like he does enough at shortstop that he is the leader of that team, and he is a very good defensive shortstop. So I wish he would be. I hope him the best, and I hope he gets healthy. And because like we talked about, it's the issue is just they're in such a good division, man. Like if they were in the NL Central, once again, put all 30 teams together, man. Let's put them all together.
I love it. This was a big sidetrack off of the WBC, so I do want to get back to the WBC.
Yeah, let's get back to WBC. Yeah.
Let's get back to the WBC. Has your thought changed at all on your winner, on who you think are the big boppers? Like, who do you think is going to win the World Baseball Classic right now?
I think it's going to be Japan America. I still think it's Japan America. Obviously, the question mark's the Dominican, right? Like, that's now the question mark. I think that Puerto Rico getting beat so bad last night shocked me. I think Venezuela's good, but I didn't see Puerto Rico getting beat like that. But man, did Pablo Lopez look good?
He looked really good. Venezuela might be one of the
I mean, that's a good looking team, but I can't see like I said, outside of America, I can't see anybody hitting anything against Japan. Like,
you can't see the Dominican getting to Japan?
No, I don't. I just think those forearms, are so powerful. Like, I'm telling you, and I told you this off the air the first time, but like, Shohei and Darvish are 3-4 on that team.
Yeah. Darvish is like the clear-cut 4 on that team, which is so weird.
And he just got how much?
Yeah, he just got, was it 100? Was it a little over 100? He just signed his third 6-year deal.
His third $100 million deal?
God. Bag getter extraordinaire. Yu Darvish is the 4. Yamamoto looked insane. Did you watch any of the highlights from him?
I watched Pitching Ninja retweeted or like posted one of his curveballs and how unique the release is. And like, I'm an odd bird because I'm a guy that like when I watch baseball, most players, like when they watch, they'll be like, man, that looks so easy. I'm not. Like, I think it looks harder. Like, I'm watching baseball. Like, I'm watching these Yamamoto curveballs going,
And it's
yeah,
like, how do I do this? Yeah.
I'm swinging it out of the hand. Out of the hand, I'm swinging at it. Like, no questions asked.
I hear you. So is that like your typical takeaway? If you're watching a big league game and you're watching a marquee starter, do you think, how the hell do I even make contact with something remotely like this?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the first time it hit me. Because I specifically remember watching Toronto play Baltimore in 2016, I believe. And I remember watching Michael Givens pitch in Toronto. And that was peak Michael Givens.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching that ball move and thinking, like, how does anybody hit this? Like, this isn't science. This physics says this should not happen.
Yeah.
But yes, I am. But I'll tell you, like most guys, if you ask most guys, and honestly, it's a trend with coaches too. Like, I've had a lot of coaches. It's something that I aspired not to be as a coach, is like, I think a lot of coaches forget how hard it was.
Yeah.
It's because you sit there and watch and you go, man, like, why didn't you swing at that? Well, why did you throw that? I wouldn't have done that. Well, you wouldn't have done that because you knew what was happening, and like, it's hindsight's 2020.
Right.
But so I think I'm atypical in that sense. But yeah, man, I watch these things and I'm like, yeah, like I'm glad I'm not standing in right now.
Yeah. I hear you on that. I can definitely hear these coaches saying that type of thing. And I think that something that gets lost is the heat of the moment aspect of what players go through. Yes, you can, hindsight, you can be a hindsight doctor all you want, and those people are the worst. But in real time, even if you come up with the right decision that is not followed and it blows up at a player's face, you have to understand that, like, you have no emotional buy-in to what's going on at that point. You know what I mean? Even a manager who, yes, really wants to win the game, he's not pitching for his livelihood. He's not hitting for his livelihood anymore. And I can absolutely see where managers and coaches will lose that. And as an announcer, you could say that was a really dumb base running decision there. That was a really dumb decision to throw to that bag instead of that bag there. But you got to think, heat of the moment, these guys like are operating at a stress level that's exponentially higher than yours, because they have a level of give a shit that you can never match.
And you got to, like, that's why like, it sounds so fundamental, but that's why practice is so important, is because you got to ingrain certain moves into certain positions, into certain counts, into certain situations, right? Like, I try to watch as much baseball as I can to see as many situations as I can to see what I would do in those situations, so that it's not the first time I've seen it. Because you don't want the first time you've seen or been in that situation to be in the heat of the moment, like you said. I think that's such an important piece to that, for sure. And that, slow heartbeat, man. Like, we talked about it a little bit, but like the guys that have it, it's easier to make decisions when your mind's not racing. I tell kids all the time, like, hitting is the hardest thing to do in the world when you're clear-minded. If you have anything else going on in your head, forget about it.
Yeah.
Forget about it. Like, I think that goes for a lot of stuff. One cue that I've been told is like, and I think I said this in an earlier episode, but I'll say it again because I love it, is like, these dudes don't keep their focus for the whole game, right? Like, the best in the world just have the ability to refocus quicker than the next guy. Yes. I think that's a common thing that you'll learn from a lot of these guys, is like, these guys are not necessarily, most of these guys are normal people. They just have a very special skill. Now, some of these guys have some crazy athletic ability, right? Corbin Carroll is an absolute freak athletically. O'Neal Cruz is arguably the greatest athlete outside of Bo Jackson to ever play our sport.
Yeah.
Like, you have those guys that are outliers for sure, but we don't talk about the outliers. They're outliers. The normal baseball player is a pretty normal guy. They work hard to get there, but I don't know. I think I differed a little bit because, like, I love the game so much that I had so much fun. I have so much fun playing the game that, like, that's all that mattered to me. It's like having fun. Like, I think you hear all the time, like when you're in like a high level college or something, you'll hear coaches like, man, you know how many people would love to be where you're at right now? Like, look, man, I don't think that's true. I think when you're at like an SEC school, the reality is there are not that many people that are good enough to play at high level Division I programs in the minor leagues, in the major leagues. But I think the reality is there are enough people that would have fun doing it. And I've always said like it would be unfair to those people for a bunch of people to not have fun doing what we do. Like, this is so much fun. You know, we do play a child's game, but like it's extremely difficult. It's as simple as it comes. Throw the ball hard, hit the ball hard, catch the ball.
Yes.
But man, if you have fun doing it, it makes it so much easier.
And in turn, if you're having fun, that slows your heartbeat down. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the heart rate thing, because it is less apparent in baseball than it is the other three major American, or than the other two major American sports. You look at football and basketball. The best example of that is Mahomes during the AFC title game, right? Like, he was wearing a whoop and his heart rate went down when he was on the field. His heart rate was higher when he was off the field because he was not in control of the game. Like, that's a guy who is thinking as close to how we think when in the heat of the moment. I think the best example, and going to your point of like, you know, a lot of the best players in baseball are as genetically gifted as we are, or not as genetically gifted as we are. And they just worked their ass off to be the best version of their self, given their, you know, abilities as a physique. They just think about the game in a different way, and they can control that heartbeat and not be fazed by the moment. The best example of that in another sport is a point guard in basketball. Yes, you have some physical freaks, but then you've got these point guards, and I think college is the best example, and I think the NCAA tournament is the best example. You've got a senior point guard whose resting heart rate during a game, or not resting, but like whose baseline heart rate during a game is closer to 120 than the 170, 180 guy out of stress. They're going to be better. They're going to be the one that hits the big shot. They're going to be the one that finds the right shooter on the wing. And like, that's why there is a concrete difference between having a senior point guard and a freshman point guard. They are less stressed than the freshmen. And the and the hitters and the pitchers that are less stressed in Major League and minor league baseball are always going to be the better ones.
And the point guards, just going back to it, like most of the time that senior point guard has been in whatever situation it's been in. It's not his first time doing it. Right. You know, which is why I'll say too that like baseball is the only sport that does not get to practice at 100%. That is why hitting is so hard. People don't realize that. We are the only sport. It's the only position in all of sports that cannot practice at 100%. We can never truly see pitching at 100% every day. It just can't happen until the game. And so every other position in sports gets to see best on best whenever they want. We can't do that. That is a big reason as to why we're doing that. Now, going back to the heart rate, it's why the on-field, on-court tech is so big. Like, people want to know why it's big. It's big because teams want to find out how they can create this. How do we find this guy to have this heart rate? Like, why is this guy successful? Is he successful because he's unbelievably, is he Jacob deGrom? Or is he successful because he has good stuff and can control himself in big situations?
Yes.
And I think we're finding that for the most part, the guys that have good stuff and can control themselves are just as valuable as the guys with sick stuff that cannot control themselves.
Or channel emotions in a positive way, which is what I think we're seeing in the World Baseball Classic. But
Anthony Santander, that was cool.
Yes, man. Santander was cool. I'm thinking about the kid pumping 103 for Colombia when they went to extras with Mexico. Did you see that kid in the ninth that punched out Verdugo? I mean, that is channeling your stressful emotions into something positive, and it's slowing your heartbeat to the point where you get that snap of a finger break, and then you're going. And
the other thing that I like that's cool about the World Baseball Classic too is that we talked about this before the Classic, but like, you know, we talked about the different groups of guys that had to make decisions on if they were going to play in the Classic. The guys that, you know, might make a team, might not make a team. We're seeing a lot of like minor leaguers that are good minor leaguers.
Harry Ford just hit 2 bombs, man.
Huh?
Harry Ford just hit his second bomb.
That's sick. And he's a top 100 guy. So but I was going to say, like, we're seeing a lot of guys that aren't necessarily top 100 guys that are really putting on strong showings for their country in a situation where they would not have got these opportunities in big league camp for their teams. Yeah. And so these guys that are doing that, hats off, man. You guys made the right decision. Like, that is really cool to see.
You see the kid for Nicaragua strike out Julio, Soto, and Devers in the 9th inning and sign with the Tigers an hour later?
That's tight. My wife told me, I didn't even see this one. My wife told me about when the Cubs played America before the Classic, Assad. See what Assad did?
Assad was pumping gas. 97. I like Javier Assad. Like, I think that guy should be a spot starter for the Cubs. I think Wisniewski should be the 5, but I think Assad should be like the swing man for the Cubs. But I didn't know 97 was coming out of that arm.
6 in a row.
He was crazy against the States.
Good. He's good, man. So the first time I saw that guy was on a backfield when I was still with the Cubs. I believe it was 19, and it was like AA versus AAA. And he got through like 3 or 4 innings in like 25, 30 pitches. And we were all looking at each other like he threw 2 pitches. He was throwing this fastball and this little cutter. And we were all looking at each other like, who in the world is it? We have no idea who this guy is. This guy's up here wearing glasses. We've never seen this guy before. And he's just shut down the best players in our system. What is happening? And, 3 years later in 2022, I see him pitch in Indy, and man, I'm with you. That's going to be a good piece for that team. But he'll be a guy that does the secondary stuff come through. But man, that's just cool. That's same thing, right? Like, that's an opportunity that he doesn't get in a normal game. He gets that opportunity because they're playing USA. And so they're not going to throw everybody. But you know what? He shows out, dude. And David Ross is not going to forget that.
No. Yeah, how can you? That was him. Joey Meneses is like a totally different conversation because Meneses is that dude. And I think everybody realized that he hit 311 with 25 bombs for Lehigh Valley in 18 and was playing in Japan the next year. That's the most screwed up thing ever when it comes to Meneses. But yeah, man, Javier Assad, he is a guy trying to break camp with the Cubs. He just did more hurt for himself in one night than he would of like a month of scoreless ball in spring training.
No questions asked. I brought this guy up before, but I'm telling you, Spencer Watkins made himself a major leaguer because of what he did. He was not a non-roster invite. He was in minor league camp. He made himself a big leaguer by what he did when he came over to assist as a backup big leaguer. He pitched in games, got quick outs, and because of that, Brandon Hyde remembered him. Man, the cliche and the statement that I always remember is you never know who's watching. And that's never more true. I mean, and obviously, you're in the big leagues. You do know who's watching. Right. But, a lot of times when we talked about, the big number guys and, they care. These people care. Whether the fans are looking at it going, who is this guy? The coaches care because if you can help me win, that's what I want. Yeah. So, cool.
Man, this was good stuff. Gunnar Henderson on Friday.
Gunnar Henderson.
There we go. We're going to talk to him a little bit later this week and get that out for you guys on Friday. Can't wait to talk to the number 1 prospect in baseball, according to MLB Pipeline and Baseball America, I think. So it's going to be great, man. Screw arm. Yeah. Arm's an idiot for having that $111 million guy as the number 1 prospect. Whatever. All right, guys. Every link you need is in the show notes, including our link tree, which we've got a bunch of links in the episode description, but if you click on the link tree, you get a whole bunch of other links. So go ahead and do that. It's Linkception. Absolutely.
Love it.
Catch you guys.